You're welcome.
And we are open to any questions you may have of us.
Can you tell us specifically how the Department of Development privatization could hurt you? What would be put at risk if they went with Kasich's plan and dismantled the Department of Development and went down the road that he wants to go down? Do you know what would be at risk?
Would you like to take this one, David?
Yeah. I would wonder whether they would anticipate closing down the international trade offices. If they were to do that, I think that would remove an important service and resource for especially small businesses looking to sell abroad. It's a difficult thing to do, and having a friend overseas in a home office in Brussels, Mexico City, has been very, very helpful to us. But in my mind, the most sort of faulty thing about the privatization plan of the ODD is I don't think we could expect a CEO to act in the interest of the state if in fact one of their competitors wanted to come into Ohio. I think it's a naive idea on the part of John Kasich and reflects the fact that he simply is not a real-world businessman down in the trenches.
What do you think, Steve?
It's terrific having people in the field. It's very helpful for us. We can call them. They'll give us leads and contacts, and they treat us fairly. Also, we got a free trip to Japan based upon the ODD's work, which is also very helpful. And we developed sales directly to Japan, a very difficult market to penetrate.
Governor, can you give us any indication that last night's rally has helped with the so-called enthusiasm gap?
Well, I'm not sure there is an enthusiasm gap. With all due respect to the pundits, sometimes they get on a kick and they just keep riding that horse until it collapses on election day. The fact is that we are monitoring across our state requests for absentee ballots. And in Ohio, at least, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but in Ohio, thus far, we have determined that more Democrats are requesting absentee ballots than Republicans are requesting absentee ballots. I don't think that's indicative of any kind of serious enthusiasm gap. And so there was a lot of enthusiasm there last night, was there not? 35,000 people showed up. The largest gathering, political rally that the president has participated in since his inauguration. And it happened here in Central Ohio. We had a wonderful event prior to that in the Cleveland area. And I think there's enthusiasm. I think the momentum is going our way. And that's why, I think David's going to win. I think I'm going to win.
Governor Strickland, you have gone out of your way to try to be supportive of business since you took over. You embraced the tax overhaul.
I have.
Yet the two major business groups, the Chamber of Commerce, NFIB, endorsed your opponent. Ohio Manufacturers Association hasn't endorsed anybody. Why can't you get any institutional support from these groups after all you've done to try to work with them?
Well, let me talk about those three groups. First of all, the Ohio Manufacturers Association has remained neutral.
Right.
I can tell you they endorsed Mr. Blackwell 4 years ago. And I'm very appreciative of the Manufacturers Association. In terms of the National Chamber of Commerce and the local Chamber of Commerce, they are a tool of the Republican Party. There's no doubt about that. Well, when Rupert Murdoch of Fox News gives $1 million to the National Chamber of Commerce, what's that tell you? I'm not naive about these things. And so I say the NFIB and the National Chamber of Commerce, and unfortunately now the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, are tools of the Republican Party. And to not receive their support is of no concern to me.
Governor, as part of the pushback yesterday, Mary Taylor revealed that she had asked the feds to investigate Helen Jones Kelly. Were you aware of that, and what do you think of that?
I don't think I was aware of that. I think it's interesting, but I interpret it as a losing campaign's effort to, at the last minute, stir up some kind of controversy.
Both you and the president last night talked about the dire consequences for Ohio and presumably the nation if the Republicans win here. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. I I can talk about Ohio certainly. And I am concerned about Ohio's future if my opponent were to win, because I do believe that he is well outside the mainstream. I think his thinking and his proposals are reckless and even radical. Now, why do I say that? To suggest that we could eliminate our state's income tax, while at the same time signing a pledge that he would never, under any circumstances, as far as I can tell what the pledge is like, support increased revenue from other sources, is as irresponsible as anything I've ever known a political candidate to do. It's much more extreme than Ken Blackwell ever was. His tendency to just want to turn back the clock on every progressive initiative we've undertaken. Education reform, getting $400 million in Race to the Top funds. I think if he were governor and he were to do what he says he plans to do, we would relinquish that $400 million in Race to the Top funds, as well as see all the other initiatives turned back. We competed for rail money, $400 million. He says if he's elected, he'll send it back. Now, he is being, in my judgment, disingenuous with the people when he implies that he would try to get that money back for other purposes. He was in Congress 18 years. I was there 12 years. We both know how that works. There is not one chance, in my judgment, in a $500,000 that money would ever come back to Ohio. In fact, other states have already indicated their interest in getting that money if it were to be sent back. The energy bill. We are seeing major investments in new and renewable energy resources in Ohio. He has implied, more than implied, he has said that he would consider getting rid of that standard. He hasn't said he would get rid of it, but he said he would consider getting rid of it, which certainly interjects uncertainty into those who may be interested in making investments. So I really fear for the future of Ohio if he were to become governor, because I think he is very extreme in his thinking. I mean, even the newspapers who have endorsed him have basically said that. The Cleveland Plain Dealer said that he's the kind of guy who may talk himself off a cliff, referred to him as the Red Bull candidate, and said we are endorsing him with trepidation. Now, you know what I did last night in one of my free moments? I have a huge dictionary at the house, and I looked up the word trepidation because I thought I knew what it meant, and sure enough, I did. So even his supporters acknowledge that he is scary, because the word trepidation, synonyms were words like quivering, frightful, and so on. And that's coming from a newspaper who selected him as their endorsee.
Why do you think they endorsed him over you?
Well, as I read it, it was sort of like this. Ted Strickland's a solid guy. He hasn't done a terrible job, but he's a little boring. And, John Kasich's really exciting, and we don't know what he might do. I mean, I'm sort of summarizing here. We don't know what he might do, but he'll bring some excitement, and so we'll endorse him with trepidation.
Governor, you've been making a lot of campaign stops at businesses holding events there. What's the motivation behind that?
Well, to emphasize the fact that I have been a business-friendly governor. I have worked with business, and quite frankly, I've got a lot of support within the business community. And I'm proud of that, because I do understand that business must succeed, business must be profitable. If jobs are going to be created, I mean, this company's not going to add 2 or 3 or 4 new employees if they aren't being profitable. And so I've tried to be that kind of governor, to bring a balance, to make sure that my administration has an open door and an open ear, and is willing to sit down with business leaders and discuss their concerns. I think the fact that I embraced the '05 tax reform ought to be very significant to the business community. John Kasich really trashes our tax. He minimizes that 205 tax reform. But that tax reform, quite frankly, was fashioned in large part by the business community in Ohio. And so I think I'm better for business than John Kasich, quite frankly. And I think, you know, some of the business leaders understand that. I mean, business leaders come up to me, they wish me well, they may say it in hushed tones because it's it's not in keeping with their more traditional positions. But there are a lot of business leaders, especially in Central Ohio, who are very, very supportive of me.
At the end of last week, there was a Forbes rating. It was a business and career poll where we
Yes.
fell from 37th to 38th. Any candidate can find a business behind them
Absolutely.
and a business against them. Polls, I mean, those sorts of rankings come out all the time. What should voters look to
Well-
objectively figure out which candidate is
Well,
best?
let me share with you the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council. Look at how they rate Ohio. Best in the Midwest, I think 7th best in the nation. So, you know, you can find different rating groups, and quite frankly, most rating groups are biased. I mean, you look at the AFL-CIO rankings, and you're probably going to find out that I'm doing a little better than John Kasich. You look at the Chamber of Commerce ratings, you're going to find out that he's doing a whole lot better according to their scale than I am. So it's possible to go out and find some group to validate your position, and I say that in regard to me as well as my opponent. But I think Ohio's doing okay in terms of our position with other states. We've got a long way to go, but the Federal Reserve indicated that we do have the 6th fastest growing, at least in the second quarter of the year, the 6th fastest growing state economy in America. Our unemployment has gone down 5 straight months in a row. We now have a lower unemployment than Indiana, and to hear John Kasich talk about Mitch Daniels, you would think that he's the second coming of Ronald Reagan. But I think we're doing pretty good compared to Indiana. In fact, we've competed with Indiana over the last year and a half, and we've won much more than we've lost in those head-to-head competitions with Indiana. So, the people will decide, but I think people are coming to understand that what Ohio needs is stable, mature leadership. And in this troubled time, when we are in a fragile recovery, what we don't need is someone who's, a little reckless, maybe more than a little reckless.
Everyone who knows
Last
you,
question.
everyone who knows you says you're a nice guy, and
I am.
You have this image of being a nice guy, and that's one side. But then there also seems to be in some of these editorials and some of the things we hear from Kasich that you don't have the courage to lay the hammer down when you should. Can you give us one instance of a time when you've stood your ground and you've put your foot down and you've said absolutely not, and you have gone against that grain?
I could give you several, but one that you probably are aware of was the sick leave issue. When the SEIU, which are major supporters of mine, were proceeding with that initiative, and I said I did not think it was in the best interest of Ohio, and so I took a contrary position. But I could with a little time, I could mention many such times when I have taken a strong stand.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
you,
you.
Governor. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
And by the way, I think
What did you say, Joe?
I said I think he's a nice guy too. It's hard not